Welcome to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the vibrant people and cultures of the Pacific. I'm Michael Tan, and I'm joined by my co-host, Milford Tiafala. This episode is brought to you by Matai Watches, a luxury timepiece brand that embodies the essence of the Pacific Islands. But we have an even more special treat for you today, as we're honored to be joined by a true legend in the world of Fireknife dance. He's a World Fireknife champion, the host of the Fireknife Life podcast, and a co-founder of Hula Afi, a Polynesian cultural arts organization. Please give a warm welcome to our guest, Rex Tiumalu. In this episode, we'll dive deep into the world of Fireknife dance, explore the rich history and traditions of Polynesian culture, and get to know the man behind the legend. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this fascinating conversation on Behind the Lava Lava. So before we start, Rex, could you tell me a little bit about your background, your parents, where you're from?
Yeah. So, thank you so much for that introduction. That actually means a lot, being called a legend in this sport. But name is Rex Tiumalu, and I was born in Orlando, Florida. And my parents came from Samoa. Well, my dad is from American Samoa, Whangtongo, and my mom is from Vaimosu, Western Samoa. And how I got into Polynesian dancing, the art of Fireknife dancing, is, my dad was a part of that second generation of Fireknife dancers that learned this new art. Remember that Fireknife dance is only 70 years old. It was made in 1949, and my dad was kind of that second generation of people that learned this art that was so new. And so then from him, and my mom was a Polynesian dancer at the Polynesian Culture Center, and they actually met in the States, traveling for SeaWorld and being Polynesian dancers for SeaWorld, San Diego, Ohio, and all the way down to Disney World, where they, made their mark. So I got to learn from my parents how to do this art, and especially my brother, who was also a world champion Fireknife dancer. We grew up around that. Polynesian entertainment is our whole life, and Samoan culture, the way we were actually embedded into the culture of Samoa was through Siva Afi, and through these cultural art practices, through entertainment. There was no other way that we knew. And, we grew up on the road with our parents because they had this dream of wanting to spread Polynesian dance all around the world. So in a nutshell, that's where we've been. And me and my brother, we both have danced for the biggest stages in the world. We both danced for Disney. I'm still at Disney right now, actually. My brother's now at Tiati Productions. We've danced for Universal, SeaWorld, all the major Polynesian productions in the world we've been a part of because of the art form that we're so proud and honored to do in front of tourists who would never know what Samoa is or Polynesia is. We get to be that kind of gateway to them. So that's a little piece of what we've been about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I like to kind of prep ourselves and prep our guests with an icebreaker. So I'm going to turn it off to Milford with the icebreaker.
All right. So Rex over here has his own podcast, and I would like to ask Rex is if you could invite over 3 people, living or dead, over for a podcast session, who would you have on?
Oh, man. That's an awesome question. I think what I really want to transition Fireknife Life to is not just for Polynesian performers, but for everyone, right? But if 3 people who are dead or alive, this is going to sound funny, but I wish I could bring on, The Rock, of course. The Rock is somebody that I've always wanted to ask about, how deeply he feels about the Samoan roots and stuff, and kind of learn that entrepreneurial side from him, business mind. Somebody that's not here anymore. This is going to sound funny, and I said this on Village Made podcast for Jim Henson, the guy that made the Muppets. I know that's so funny, but people only think of him as the Muppet guy, but people shoehorn him in that category, but he's done other things for the movie business that not a lot of people give him credit for. And I want to see how he would feel about being pigeonholed in such a way. And then one more person, somebody I haven't been on the podcast yet, but he's still around, but it's Chief Sialuavea. Chief Sialuavea, whoever has seen the old Polynesian Culture Center videos, I've got to work with him. I got to dance for him, but I really wanted to see what his journey is like. He's the very first world champion fire knife dancer that gave the fire knife competition, the competition that me and my brother have won, like legitimacy around the world. And what it was like for him to transition from being a world champion to represent the Polynesian Culture Center to creating his own thing. And it's kind of like those three people that I really would love to, these people that inspired me and wanted to learn more about their journeys and how I can apply it to my own journey. If that makes sense.
Yeah. For me, there's only one person that I would invite on my podcast to learn about cultural and my ancestry, and that would be my grandfather, Solia Tushialofa. I never had the opportunity to meet him. He passed away back in the early 2000s, I believe. So he would be the one person that I wish was alive to talk to about a lot of many things related to the Samoan culture, and I heard he was a funny man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes me want to change my answer though. That makes me want to change my answer.
Well, the thing is, you stole one of my answers, and that was The Rock. Yeah, The Rock.
Oh man, yeah, The Rock. Man, I don't know what kind of hoops we all have to go through, but I feel like all of us that have Polynesian podcasts, I think whoever figures out how to get him on, let us know.
Yeah, I think that was one of mine too. Was Dwayne, The Rock Johnson, what you call Dave Chappelle, and then just for kicks, what's his name? Marcus Aurelius, I believe.
Oh, who is that?
He's old time philosopher. He wrote a well-known book that people know, sort of.
Love that. Here's a funny story actually about The Rock, though. Not a lot of people know this, but The Rock and his family, you know, they live their lives in Orlando, not in Orlando, but in Tampa, Florida. You know, so I got to grow up with Haku Tonga from WCW. His family lived over there. I got to grow up around them in the entertainment industry. They saw my fire knife journey. And Tiata saw my fire knife journey with my brother. And when Samoa Joe was in TNA, Total Nonstop Action, they were filming in Universal. And so they would call me and my brother to do fire knife for them. So we got to build these connections with these big Samoans that were doing big things in the entertainment industry. And that's something that I feel like drove all of us to be in the entertainment industry, was because in Samoan culture, you either become a wrestler or you become a football player. What if you can be an entertainer and build connections with the crowd and become like a person that influences people for good? Because when you're playing on a team and a football team and stuff, we know who you are, but sometimes you'll be drowned out by your team. That's why I kind of like fire knife and all of that, because it's kind of an individual thing. It really is up to you. It's only you on stage, and these people were only playing themselves on TV and all that. And Nancy that would always encourage me. She pushed me to be a part of WXW, to be a part of the Anawa'i Wild Samoan Training Center when they opened up in Florida. I did it for a year with Uncle Afa and all of them, and it was great. I trained with also Noah Kekoa. He was also in WWE NXT. We were training at the same time. But I kind of always knew that knife and Polynesian chamber were always my thing. So I'm always surrounded by them, and people don't realize how big Florida is to our cultures from the 50s and 60s. It's been around, and we've been around. And it's just, I want to be the person that tells their stories. You know, I don't know if that goes off topic of what we were trying to go to.
Oh no, everything's related. So how did you get interested in fire knife dancing, and what's your inspiration in pursuing that career?
My inspirations for fire knife dancing has always been three people. It's always been my dad, my uncle Homer Leapai, which is my mom's brother, and the person that truly taught me how to do fire knife was my uncle Sefa Leapai, was his brother, my mom's brother, and I see them every night on stage at Disney or at SeaWorld. That connection they have with the crowd was amazing to me. There's a difference between fire knife dancing for a competition and fire dancing for a stage show. Stage show is all about entertaining the crowd, making that connection, making them laugh, while being great at spinning the knife. That's what I loved about them. They weren't just funny, and then when they spun the knife, it was all right. Like, they mastered all three of those things. And me and my brother were so enamored by it. And we grew up with another 5-time world champion fire dancer who was on Ellen DeGeneres, or not Ellen DeGeneres, Kelly Clarkson's show, Mikaeli Oloa. Mongo Mu himself, Mr. 2 million followers on TikTok. We all grew up together. So we spun our whole childhood together. We spun together. We watched the OGs, and the OGs that lived in Florida. Those are the only exposure that we had to, but we didn't know about the fire dancers in Hawaii yet until fire knife competition videos came out that drove us to want to go compete on the world level and represent Orlando. And that presented a whole bunch of challenges as well that probably we can get into later. But that was the driving force. Those people were the driving force in me wanting to learn Hula Afi. One day be a part of the Walt Disney World stage and be a part of that show.
Yeah, that's amazing. Could you talk about any memorable moments or experiences from your time competing in the fire knife competitions?
Man, I think one of my most memorable times of competing in the fire knife competition is when this is from Polynesian Culture Center. I think it was 2010 when I won the championship a second time in a row. I was facing against people I watched on video. The first year I won, I was facing great people, but it was people that I got to see that night. But 2010, I was facing two people, and I won't say their names because we were just talking. Brandon Lamvatai, Julius Tafiti. Those two were my idols in the junior division. But I didn't get to compete with them the year before because I think they were all doing shows. So I remember seeing their name on the roster because we had to sign our names to check in, and I saw their names. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going against them. These people that, when I watched them on video, I want to be as fast as Julius or as smooth as Brandon. Like, trying to, we always try to pull from our inspirations. So those two went on before me. And usually I don't watch anybody, so I don't get inside my own head. But these two people, other than VJ and Miko, were like my two inspirations. So I got to watch them. And so when I went on, it inspired me so much that I was just catching everything, throwing. And when they announced us at the, first, second, and third, usually sometimes, I'll say there's some fine art dancers that win. They just gotta check, say hi to everybody, then they jam. They don't really acknowledge the other fire dancers. But me, I turned around to them and said, hey, like, because of you two, I am here. And I feel like that is one of the most transformative times of my teenage life. Is like, hey, I always, yes, I have these titles and things, but they don't really mean anything unless these people that paved the way before me, even though they were a little bit older than me, I kind of got to turn around and thank them for being with them, even though that I was competing against them. And they kind of showed me that I needed to show respect to the other competitors because they just put in the same work that I did to get to this one night in Hawaii. That we have one night in May to show what we have been doing. And getting to see my brother win the championship and being carried around in that chair, and Mika, because we've trained together. And when my brothers win, we win too. I win too. And I think us in Orlando, Florida, representing from 2006 all the way down to 2017, to have people all around the world in fire knife and Polynesian dancing, to know that Orlando, Florida, people from the East Coast can represent just as much as somebody that lives in Samoa and somebody that lives in California. One of the challenges was like people saying like, oh, you're from the East Coast. What the heck do you know about being Samoan? What the heck do you know about growing up with Polynesians and stuff like that? And what do you know about fire knife? We didn't go in with the mindset of proving people wrong. We just wanted to show and showcase what we love. And that's what makes those memories more memorable now.
Yeah, and I want to take it back a little bit because you didn't become a champion overnight. Can you share on your experience starting out? Because I know I'm pretty much sure that you were making a lot of mistakes trying to fire knife, learning how to fire knife. Could you share on your experience and also share on some advice and tips for those who are aspiring to be fire knife dancers who are just starting out?
I would say that my journey going up to, yeah, you're right. It wasn't overnight. You know, I won my first championship at 11 years old, but even before then, just learning, I would get burned a lot. I dropped the knife a lot, dropped the stick. In practice, I would get so frustrated. I'm like, man, dude, am I even meant for this? I keep dropping it. I'm not landing anything. And my dad was teaching me about patience. You know, my brother and Mika were already in the world competition before me, winning and doing all those things. And I felt like I wanted to catch up to that. I wanted to play catch up. And, but I stunted my own growth because I wasn't focused on loving the art and loving what I was doing. I was focusing on the end result, which was the shows and the championships. So me and my dad every single day would be outside of our house in Florida. My brother Mika would be practicing, but my dad would take time with me and harness my craft. Like, no, you have to do this same move 10, 20 times without dropping and then move on. I think sometimes as fire dancers, especially the new era with social media and watching us post things on TikTok and social media, Instagram, and seeing us land these big tricks, these kids, they just want to go straight to light the fire and buy a knife. They buy a knife, they light fire, but they haven't spent time without fire. You have to be comfortable with the practice stick before you ever light the fire knife. That's kind of like what you apply in life, right? What you practice eventually is how you play. So if you're landing things in practice and all that, then light the knife. That's when you test yourself. You know, and I felt like I took 2 or 3 years without lighting the knife and just practicing the craft. And when I finally lit it, my brother just handed me the knife and I lit the fire knife for the first time. I was like, oh man, everything that I have been practicing and being frustrated about kind of came true. It's all persistence. You know, yes, you can be inspired by everybody, right? I tell these people that go on Instagram and TikTok and I see their fire knife videos. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that you're showing your journey, but make sure that you're making those necessary adjustments. Like if I see somebody spinning, they're spinning it wrong or catching it the wrong way. Like I would say before you post, make sure you get it right, because sometimes you can teach someone else bad habits, you know, and kind of being that person that wants to see fire knife to the fullest. My journey has been all about failure after failure after failure. 2 or 3 years before I ever jumped on stage and won my first competition. And even in competition, I wasn't comfortable. I'd still lost too. And making sure that you handle loss well and always trying to get back up. If you drop the fire knife, that's why I love fire knife. I said this on Village Mate, but that's why I love fire knife, because you can fail in the moment, right? You can drop the knife in front of everybody on stage. It's either you stay there and freeze and get all upset, or you pick it up and you pick the fire knife up and you just keep continuing and know that if you perform again for a new set of people, you can adjust yourself. So it's all a growing process. That's why I feel like fire knife is the best like life tool when it comes to Polynesian dancing. It's a knife.
Any physical injuries throughout your journey? Any gnarly ones?
Oh man, it's a lot of yeah. Man, I've set my legs on fire, you know, accidentally from the leaves that we wear on the bottom catch on fire. My legs have caught on fire. I've burned my hair. You know, I used to have really long hair. I think my first year competing, when I put the fire behind my head, my bun caught on fire. What else? Backstage, lighting up. I went to the hospital and got third-degree burns on both hands. You know, and you know, it's so funny. That didn't really deter me from doing knives. It made me want to do it more, because of course it hurts, but it comes with the territory of everything that we do. I think that's what I like about fire knife too, is that when we go up on stage, we have no idea what's going to happen. And we may know our routine, but we can catch it wrong. We can get sliced, burned. I've sliced my chest on stage at Disney, you know, doing the double knives. The hook itself on the fire knife is caught right here. It's in my neck and it sliced me. So people don't realize that if you're doing this at like a really high level or professionally, like there's risk involved. Yeah, it may look cool that what we're posting and stuff, but there's risk every single night you hop on stage. You don't know if you're going to come out of it I wouldn't say not alive because you'll survive, but injuries and things like that. So I feel like it's the most dangerous. That's the reason why we say it's the most dangerous dance in all of Polynesia, because it is.
You mentioned some struggles and challenges. Could you address some of those? Because I know you mentioned something about the cultural aspects. Could you speak on the mental health or self-care or the cultural aspect of these challenges that you faced?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced being a kid and winning early and representing this town of Orlando, Florida, right? That's very, we have a huge Polynesian community over there. Like Orlando and Miami, like we have a lot. So when our communities found out that we were representing them at a high level, there was a lot of pressure on us. And I won at 11 years old. My brother was 12. Miko was 15. And that pressure of every show that we've done, every show that we did, we had to dance 100%. And sometimes we would be invited to parties just so we could dance tonight. Didn't realize it at the time. But as I grew up, I was like, man, I love this art, but are we just trophies to our people, you know? And a lot of people will be like, tell us like, why would you spin knife when you don't even know how to speak the language or do these things? And it didn't make me feel Samoan at all. I felt like we were just baton twirlers at that point, you know? And going back to what I was saying about, you know, performing at a high level at everything that we've done in Orlando, is that every show that we've done and there was Polynesians around, we had so much pressure to not drop it, not do crazy stuff. And when we don't land it, so sometimes the community comes up to us like, why did you drop it? I thought you won. You know what I mean? And that would get into your head, right? It's because there's so much pressure of representing a town that's like very unknown. And I think that's a product of people being proud of us and wanting the best for us, but not like, you know, how someone, like a lot of Samoans are, they say a lot of harsh things and they probably mean it in the best ways. But when a kid is growing up like that and trying to do the best that they can, growing as a person, I'm still going to school with kids that weren't Polynesian, then going back to my Polynesian community there and be like, okay, what am I worth? And then going to competitions in California and Hawaii, and people are still doing the same thing. And there was one time that there was one competition that I was in. I just wanted to prove everybody wrong in the back. Like, yeah, I'm from Orlando, but dude, I fought for this. You know what I mean? I think the biggest mental struggles is knowing my own worth and not tying my whole worth to the knife. You know, I'm on this podcast to spread culture and love about this specific art that means so much to people. But I also want to teach the next generation to do not tie your whole self-worth into the stage. You have to clock out mentally. In order to be a champion in this sport, you also have to be a champion in your real life too. And I was not a champion in real life. I was mentally struggling, trying to please the whole world to see this image of me as this world champion, that I wasn't focusing on myself. And how I got over that was seeing my brother and Mika, like they have 1 million TikTok followers for a reason, because they knew how to clock in and clock out. I was always in. You know, I've always had that complex of being a 3-time world champion's younger brother or the apprentice of Mika and all that, and not to apply pressure on myself and not to take it, and not to kind of kill with kindness, because I started to resent the sport too. But the more I started to really internalize things and improve in real life, my skill got better. And so the struggles of growing up as a kid and going into your like late 20s and trying to figure out yourself was hard for me to handle, you know. But now it's just now like getting a lot better to know that I could separate myself from the knife and that sometimes. And I'm here to represent the culture to the fullest, but I have to focus on my personal growth so I can be a better person to share the culture to others. I know that's very deep and very all over the place, but I just want people to take this message and find the thing that you're passionate in. Don't tie your whole your whole self to it, or you're going to start resenting it and then finding ways to love it again.
Could you talk about how you stay motivated and continue to push yourself creatively as a fire knife dancer? And what are how do you overcome these creative blocks?
Man, I feel like the fire knife creation process, especially for competition, and even if not, if you just want to bust out tricks in a luau or in a show, is really tough because your body you think that is very limited. I remember somebody in 2007 told me, oh, the new tricks that we're coming up with now in 2007, that's it. That's all the body can do. Well, that's not true, because now these people that are coming up with crazier things, you know, they're doing flips and rolls and throwing up the knife and things. And I think the creative block comes from your own imagination, not just thinking about it and thinking about new tricks, but going outside with the practice stick and applying it, you know, being creative, being imaginative. There's a lot of tricks that I do that I, you know, that inspired me from like Cirque du Soleil. If you watch, there's this Cirque du Soleil show called Barakai, and you're going to see 3 people yo-yos, spinning the yo-yos. I created one of the moves that I do on the ground, watching that video and pulling inspiration from things that you watch or things that you consume. And so every time I have a creative block, I always watch, like, and this is so funny, but sometimes I'll pull up baton twirlers or other fire acts and see how I can incorporate, not steal it, but like, how can I do this the fire knife way? Because fire knife is not like baton twirling where you're just spinning to spin. Fire knife, you have to add the warrior spirit because it's a warrior dance at the same time. It's a weapon. So how do we translate that? So those creative blocks are, you know, also being around people who are fire knife dancers too. The fire knife, it's all about pouring from your inspirations and also spinning with other fire knife dancers. Doesn't matter what skill level I have. I've learned from total beginners that do something crazy. I'm like, hey, can you do that again? Like, you can learn from anybody. And that's what I've learned, is that it's not just for us, it's for everybody. And when you can learn from every single person how to become a better fire knife dancer, surrounding yourself with the inspiration all the time. It's not easy, of course, it's not easy, but if you're passionate about something like fire knife, you'll find the people, you'll find those ways to reach out to the fire knife dancers. All of us, you can talk to us, you can DM us and we'll hop on a Zoom or whatever. I'll even Zoom, I'll call like BJ, like, hey, can you Zoom with me? How does this look? Or what can I do here? People that really understand the art form, you know. Fire knife is not just about dancing, it's also about strategy and how you move your body. And I mean, I don't look like something right now because I've been moving and eating all the in and out because I don't have that in Florida. But, you know, getting your body into different positions and getting comfortable in those positions. So when you light the fire knife, execution right there. That's how I kind of take my creative block that I have and want to blast through it.
Could you speak on how you see the future of fire knife dancing evolving? Because you mentioned learning new things and how fire knife is growing in the coming years.
I think fire knife has grown so much in the past couple of years. I mean, I'm not probably going to toot our horn, but I feel like the generation that started the fire knife competition in our era, the late 2000s or the middle 2000s, were fire knife dancers that were creating new things. We were creating new things. The art has always evolved, right? The art is always going to grow. But I think the next step, and we're all seeing this, is building a personal brand with the fire knife, showing this cultural art that is different than hula, that is different than Tahitian, you know? It's something so unique and something that is so Polynesia, so something that's so Samoan, right? Like, I think the next step of the future is building personal brands with the fire knife and using fire knife as a different tool. Something that I would like to push is having fire knife dancers be on different stages. Like I've mentioned that I worked for Disney as a fire knife dancer and SeaWorld and all these places. Having more opportunities for fire dancers to expand this Samoan art to the world. Because not only did I do Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld, I've also danced for the circus, you know, and they treat you like an actual artist. That fire knife is such an adaptable art you can put in different productions and different things, and it can mold to that specific story. I think the next play is taking these championships or taking this new generation of fire knife dancers and them creating their own opportunities, building their own shows. Because I feel like fire knife dancers, you're kind of like the star of the show, but you kind of get to see everything, how it's run, because fire knife dancer has to be very close to the show owner. So I think this next generation of fire knife dancers, business-wise, is building a new avenue for themselves in different things. But the art is always going to grow. As long as people are still spinning, people will always figure out something. That's what I like watching the fire knife competition, because we're always trying to see who's doing the new and greatest things, but also not losing sight of where the fire knife came from. It's still a Samoan art. We can create these new things, but forget the Samoan basic moves, and then it just turns out to be like a throw fest. So I think it's keeping the culture of Samoa intact with the art, but creating more and more avenues for themselves. That's the future of fire knife to me, is fire knife dancers finally knowing their worth in this world and the worth of their unique talent and adapting it to anywhere else that they can find.
Yeah, I learned something new. I didn't know how long this art has been alive, so I didn't know it was pretty young still until you mentioned it. So could we take it back even more? Are you able to tell us the origins of the fire knife, like how it started, where it started, and how it began?
Yeah, and this is something I feel like I take pride in when it comes to culture, is like the history of the Nifo'ochi itself. The Nifo'ochi was a war club, that was made by our Samoan people. A lot of people say Nafanua and all that, but the fire knife itself, the original tool, is made out of wood and shark's teeth on the blade. And then the hook is actually called the Nifo'ochi, which means the tooth of death, And when Samoa was being conquered by Tonga all those years ago, that was their weapon of choice to kind of rebel. And the ailau, which is the spinning of the knife, and kind of like that martial art that's been lost. The ailau is what they did after war, spinning the Nifo'ochi and catching it and using it as a tool. It's their martial art. It's the way they defended themselves. So the Nifo'ochi has been around for thousands of years, right? That cultural club, and then transitioned into like the 20s and 30s. They still did the ailau dance, which was the spinning of the tool and all that, but they were using axes. They were using axes and machetes, and then they made a replica of the Nifo'ochi by using the machete blade, using the hook at the end, but having the wooden staff. And then in 1949, Freddie Letuli, who is the father of the fire knife dance, he was carrying the ailau all around the world, and he went to somewhere in the East Coast or the Midwest, saw a circus. I saw these people juggling fire and blowing fire, and he's like, wow, I wonder if we can apply this to the fire knife. So he asked those people, what did you use on your tool? And like, oh, they used Kevlar, which is this substance, and then asbestos, which is really bad for you back then. If you burn that and then you breathe that in, you're and they used that, and he grabbed some from them, got lighter fluid, got some old chicken wire, put it on the fire knife, and it was born. Spinning that knife and hearing that, when you hear the knife spin without the drums, I implore somebody that's just spinning it, try to spin the fire knife without the drums and hear how crazy that sounds. And so Freddie Letuli taught him and two men named Johnny Wood and Kuili. Kuili is the one that sings that song, I Remember You. Like the old school guys probably know that song. And he taught those two fire knife, and they started to spread it to Hawaii. And now if you think of every luau in the world, you cannot think of fire knife. Think of luau without the fire knife. And that's a brief history of it, but it came from something that we were defending ourselves against, the war, using it with the war. Now it's a cultural art form that is really transcended, I think, the history of where it came from. We're still warriors, but we're warriors in a different way now.
So one of the questions that one of our hosts have was, do you know of any statistics of fire knifing, if it's progressing or if it's slowing down on the art form of people learning it?
I don't know if there's any statistics. I wish there was a Polynesian like art dancing statistical guy, logistic person. But as I'm seeing all around the world, it has not stopped. There's Fireknife schools in New Caledonia. There's Fireknife schools in Tahiti. There's Fireknife schools in Hawaii. 3 of them in Hawaii. Well, 4 of them now because my brother. There's some here in California. Samoa. Lenny Leota, who is the owner of Hula Afi competition in Samoa, he has about 120 students, female and male. So this art form is not dying by any means. It may not be as popular as hula teaching is. I bet you if we all scroll on TikTok and Instagram right now as Polynesians, you'll see somebody doing the hula or doing ori, which is great. But I think our biggest goal as Fireknife dancers, as we try to talk to each other, is bring Fireknife more to the forefront of Polynesian dancing, to have it be more accessible, because, there's a lot of non-Polynesians that do hula and Tahitian, and they just hop in a class and then they learn right there. I'm saying, they learn right there, and, it's accessible to them. It seems like it's an achievable thing. We want to make sure that everybody that sees this cultural art form doesn't just blow it off and be like, this is going to be hard. Yes, it is going to be hard, but we want to make it accessible and not gatekeep it to us. We want to push it to outside the world. And I think that's our biggest mission. And something that when I'm being at Disney, I say to the executives at Disney, like, hey, I want Polynesian dancing and Fireknife to be the forefront of this Polynesian heritage we have here at Disney, because it's been a part of us for so long. But Samoan Fireknife dancing has not regressed, but I feel like it hasn't made the stride yet. It hasn't pushed past. There's something that's pushing that, not making us push past. So there's a boundary there. And I feel like creating podcasts like this, or Fireknife Life, or what Mongamu and my brother Donko family is doing, they're showing the rest of the world what our world is like, and that's how they're getting students. It's like, yeah, I'm interested in this art. Let's do from all around the world. So I feel like the people are still learning it at a fast rate, but the art itself has to blast through something for us to have just as much respect and love as Ori Tahiti or Hawaiian hula.
You mentioned gatekeeping. Do you think it's something that's specific to Polynesian people, or what have you seen from people learning the art?
Yeah, back then when we were starting, it was just, I rarely saw a non-Polynesian person do the Fireknife. Very rarely. Like in the early 2000s, it's not like they weren't Samoan, like there was Tahitians and Tongans doing it, but we just had a Japanese person in the finals. You know what I mean? And back then it felt like it was only for us. Like we were the only niche crowd that did it. And then you saw people come from Korea and Japan that flew Fireknife dancers from Hawaii to come teach them. And now they have their own Fireknife schools in Japan now. And I don't know about Korea, but Japan, like they have 2 Fireknife schools. Now it's more accessible. I feel like our generation made more of a conscious effort to not be like, hey, this is ours. Like, let's keep it between us. We'll only dance between us. Our generation of me and Mika, VJ's generation of like wanting to be more of ambassadors for Fireknife, because there really wasn't. There was champions, but there wasn't a lot of ambassadors. Like people would probably know champions from the years that they won, but not for the impact that they made outside of stage. And I think that's where we're trying to push our fire dancers that have competed, is to be more of an ambassador to impact people outside of the competition stage and out of their own stages that they're dancing at, either Tihatis or Disney or whatever. So people don't feel like it's only a Samoan thing. Like the world champion currently right now is Hale Motuapuaka, a Tongan kid who has won 3 times. And passing past that, you had a Japanese person in the finals, and then there's Fireknife dancers in Hong Kong, China. Like it's getting more of a worldwide thing, and I feel like now we're finally seeing the shift from the old school, which was let's just keep this between us, to now no, let's bring everybody in it. And it's not something bad. I feel like it's something good now to bring other people in it. I know a lot of people think it's a bad thing to teach other races Fireknife dancing. I've heard that in some of the circles, but it's not. This culture will die and this art will die if it only stays to us, I think.
Yes, and that's good to keep the art alive by spreading awareness and teaching it to others. It's not really a good thing to keep it to ourselves. And like you said, it'll die off if we keep it to ourselves. And could you speak on Hula Afi? How did that name come about and what is it about?
Yeah. So Hula Afi came here from, when I moved here to California to, to work for Disney and to be a part of their Asian Pacific Islander initiative, moving to California for this like TA contract that I had. I didn't want to lose that art of performing because having a corporate job and being a representative for our Polynesian people at Disney, I knew I wouldn't be performing. But me and my business partner, her name was Cassandra Liu, who was a Taiwanese who learned Fireknife and learned Polynesian dancing. We kind of got together and wanted to spread this culture. Hula Afi it's a funny word, I know, but I wanted to mix something that was both Eastern Polynesian and Western Polynesian. And our whole goal is to make like a safe creative space for Polynesian dancers to do Polynesian entertainment. We're all about entertainment. Yes, we're about preserving the cultural art and aspects, but the life that I came from was strictly entertaining people. You entertain them while you're talking to them and you're making them laugh. So it makes it like, we're not a comedy show, but you're making them feel something, right? Like there's something about, I think luau's get a lot of bad rap now, but I feel like luau's and live entertainment is what brings other people into our culture, and we do it in a way that is different. We did it not just through the fire performances and the Polynesian dancing. It's all about building the connection with the audience and building the connection with the team. We found as Hula Afi, and we've danced all over the world, and sometimes in groups, there's always, we can't, I feel like a lot of people come up on podcasts and say like, oh, we want to be part of drama-free groups and things like that. That's never really going to happen because that's something that kind of bubbles in. But we want to make sure that we are creating a safe space for our dancers to make them feel like they're heard and stuff. Because, like I said, when you're like a Odi Tahiti group or a hula group, like a halau, there's hundreds of students in there. And sometimes if you're new, you might get drowned out. We welcome all new dancers too. We don't just want experience. We want people who are just learning this for the first time and teach them and teach them and teach them, and not just the cultural dances, but also being an MC on stage. Something I love doing, seeing my dad do, is when you're the MC and when you're out there making that connection with the crowd, when the dancers come on, they're more invested. So Hula Afi is more of a creative space, a safe space. We have our residency shows in Hollywood and also here in Alhambra, California. And so we're continuing to grow and build more opportunities for Polynesian dancers that, this is something that I try to push too, because not a lot of Polynesian dancers knew that there was a huge show that Disney created, a huge show that SeaWorld created, and that we could create our living doing what we love to do. Because of that, I'm here. Because of dancing on stage at Disney, our houses are paid off. Because there was a financial means, but it showed the world that we could make a living being free, doing what we love to do. And Hula Afi, we want to expand that back to LA, because LA used to have a lot of Polynesian shows, whether it be Tahitian Terrace, Disneyland, Luau, or hotels around Hollywood or San Diego. We kind of want to resurrect that so people that learn this cultural art form, like, they don't grow up and be like, oh man, I used to love dancing, but I knew I couldn't really do it forever. I want to make sure that they can find a way to do that forever and do that. Me doing this for Compass and for the Moana series as well, like, I know that my heart is still on stage, and we want to make sure that these people don't lose their passion and lose their love for what they do. Hula Afi is such a funny name because it's like two different things, right? But I just wanted to make something that was both Eastern Polynesian representative and Western Polynesian representative, which is Afi Samoan, right? Hula is more like the Eastern Polynesia. When you think of like Tahiti and all that, that's what you think of, And so I know that's a very long-winded answer, but it's so much more deeper than just like a halal or like they do deep things, but I love the entertainment life, and I want to put more respect on it and people to know what a viable source it is for our people too.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Disney. How is it working for Disney? 'Cause I want to work for Disney too.
Bro, Disney is the best, man. I started my Disney journey dancing the Fireknife dance for them, of course. I danced at the Festival of the Lion King, which is the Lion King show they have in Disneyland Kingdom and also the Walt Disney World Luau. And I got to do small projects for them. And something I pride myself on is I'm the only Polynesian in this project team that I'm on. And I pride myself of being that Polynesian voice in Compass, because I flew down for Compass. Compass is this Asian Pacific Islander initiative that they empower their cast members to do great things. And they believe that I was doing great things, being a Fireknife dancer, but also pushing Polynesian excellence. And so when I'm sitting in the room and they're all Asian and I'm the only Polynesian voice, I want to really represent for them. Yes, a lot of people are like, yeah, the benefits are good. You can take your family in for free and their friends for free. But for me, my life is always going to be on stage. Like that's my future. I want to push more on stage and more into film and podcasting. But being in these rooms and Disney executives and sitting down with Josh D'Amaro, who is the chairman of Disney Parks Experiences and Products. If you go to YouTube and type in Josh D'Amaro, he's right next to Bob Iger. Bob Iger is the CEO, and sitting down with him and be like, hey, I want a Polynesian show here at Disneyland. Bring it back after 30 years, and being that voice for all of the Polynesian people who currently work at the resort and who built the resort from scratch. Like the Polynesian people have been a part of the Disney company since 1962. 1962 to 1993 in California was the Tahitian Terrace Luau show, where people were transported to Polynesia. Then the Disney World Luau show that my parents and my uncles and aunts were a part of were there from 1971 to 2021, 50 years, it's 50 years. So I want to be that voice for those people at Disney to create more opportunities that are outside of Hula Afi. Hula Afi is our thing, but Disney brings different people together. I learned how to do Tahitian dancing and drumming by being around the people and dancing with them on stage. Bringing the best talent in the world and bringing them to this great big resort. The world leader in entertainment. Working for Disney, I learned those skills because of being a Fireknife dancer for them and showing my worth as a Fireknife dancer and performer for them. And being in those rooms with all these Palangi people and all these Asian people and being like, hey, I'm a Polynesian voice that wants to represent for all of us. I build that, I even show them some of my podcasts. Like these are the people that I've interviewed, like these big people in the Polynesian dance industry. Let's collaborate. A lot of us Polynesians sometimes feel like it's a crab mentality. We're pulling each other down, but I want to really be that person that even have it be all of us behind the love of me, or to bring all of us together to show our worth in our own way, in our own unique way. So I'm glad that Disney gave me that opportunity to represent all the Polynesians now and before. And I want to continue to build that show. And Josh D'Amaro, the chairman, is like, let's see this through. So that's what we're currently working on. I know I mentioned the Moana series. I'm currently working on that as well, kind of overseeing some of the things. And there's a lot of Samoan creators on there. I can't really say their names, but the Moana series, and being in all these Polynesian projects for Disney, I'm very proud because I may not have a lot of the cultural things of Samoa behind me, but I know that when I'm in those rooms representing, all of Polynesia is with me. And that's something I mentioned Jim Henson before, right? Pigeonholing him and being the Muppet guy. I don't want to just be pigeonholed as the Fireknife guy. I want to use this cultural art that I've learned all these things and transition it into empowering our people to do more with the passions that they have.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're an ambassador for our people. T, you got any questions?
Oh, no, you answered my question on the previous one, or a question that I had in my, because I was curious about it. You being in the entertainment industry and with Polynesian dance and what, especially at your level, I was curious about, you know, the pay and able to make a living, and you answer that, and it kind of opened my mind a little bit too, and expanded it more for others that, you know, that love dance, that love the art, that love the culture, and they want to continue it, you know, through their lifetime. And I think it's excellent that you brought that up, so that, you know, our young dancers, no matter what the art form, they don't feel discouraged, that they can continue with their love. And I also think it's awesome that, because like you, I don't speak Samoan. I'm not aware of a lot of our cultural customs and traditions, but you stay very connected, even, you know, when you had reasons to not continue on, to, you know, turn to the side and kind of turn your back, but you never did, because, you know, you love what you do and you're staying with the culture. And I greatly appreciate that. And I think you'll be a huge inspiration to others like us, you know, that we don't speak the language. We're in the know, but we're not in the know. You know what I'm saying? We're amongst our own community. I think what you're doing is very important on all aspects, continuing to break down barriers, to do more in places like Disney, but also being an inspiration to our younger folks. And I hope you continue on and continue to succeed. And, you know, hopefully you can, in the future, when you up there, you can send us some tickets, you know.
Let me know, guys.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys too.
So Rex, how do you balance your role as co-founder of Hula Afi and Fireknife Dancing and as your podcast? You know, I know you took a break. How do you balance all that with your family time too?
Whew. And that is the balancing act of life. You know, I've recorded a whole bunch of podcast episodes these past 2 weeks, because I took a 3-year gap because I was so overwhelmed with, you know, a lot of the workload of the shows in Florida, and also this new role, but also dealing with my own personal struggles. You know, I'm not gonna lie, man. A lot of the reasons why I took off of the podcast is because I felt like I was trying to make the culture great and all these other things great, but that comes from the competitive mindset of wanting to be the best, right? But I kind of shot myself in the foot and wasn't really improving on myself. You know, I could say, like I've said in this podcast, all these great things that I'm doing, but I also know that there was personal things these past 3 years I had to go through, you know, when it came to myself and learning about myself. You know, moving to LA was the first time I was moving away from people that cared about me, like in Florida, and all these people that I grew up with, and being alone. I had to deal with that, and I had to deal with being in a new place and starting a career from scratch. Never done that before. You know, I've always been just a big piece of a bigger picture, but creating the picture, you know, what would that look like? And, you know, I'm not afraid to say that, man, I ended up in the hospital, man. I ended up in the mental hospital twice, because I was just like, you know, I just felt I didn't want to let my people down, but I was also letting myself down. And so to balance, you know, getting therapy and getting the necessary help that I needed, and, you know, balancing my life of being co-founder and owner of Hula Afi and Disney, I kind of strike that balance now of, okay, when do I take time for me? You know, my goals, and how am I improving as a person? You know, a lot of entrepreneurs I can come on podcasts, be like, yeah, everything's great, man. Yeah, everything's great, awesome. Like, you know, it's a struggle every single day, because you're trying to make a difference in every single aspect of your life, your own life, your dancer's life, and a corporation like Disney's life, and our people. So how I try to balance that is I set hours for myself now. I used to just work myself to the bone. And after that cutoff time, like 3 or 4 hours, boom. Okay, it's me time, it's family time. And when you start to schedule your life like that, you kind of get to see what's more important. Making an impact on our people and stuff is always going to be important, but how you feel in your own life and how you're nurturing relationships with the people around you are the most important thing. And that's something that I've really tried to do, is nurturing those relationships is what got me here in Disney, but I need to know that it's outside of business. I need to nurture the relationships that are around me, which would be my team and all of that. So doing a lot of introspection, and through that process, when I was recording the podcast for these past 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, wow, I feel more better primed to do this now and to make an impact, because I'm trying to improve as a person and taking time out for my own personal growth. To not, like I said before, you can't be a champion on stage and a champion for the people when you're not a champion in your own life. So that's what I'm constantly making a conscious effort to do. It's to schedule things and to make sure that the relationships that I'm building and the people that I'm with, like that takes priority over everything and my own personal growth. And then once that is done, all of the things prosper because you feel more fulfilled and whole as a person.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being open about getting help, because a lot of people, they go through life and they bottle everything up, and it's very hard to ask for help, and then they end up doing something that they regret, or something that would end their life. So I'm glad that you sought that help, and now you're here chopping it up with us here in Behind the Lava Lava, because I'm very open about depression and the mental health aspect that we all go through in life, and the struggles of the personal struggles of mental health. So thank you for seeking that help, because you're not only doing it for yourself, but there are people out there who need you, especially your family. T, you have any other questions?
No, man, I don't. I could just listen, talk about his goals and where he came from, because, I relate a lot, but it's also mind opening to, this world that you're coming from, that is part of my culture, but I knew nothing about. But I look forward to listening to your podcast more and check you out, and I hope you continue on, and listeners, man, hey, be ready to see his name on a bunch of credits and on billboards. All right.
Oh man, and I just wanted to, a lot of the things that I'm sharing on it, it's the first time, because I really believed in what you guys are doing, and being Polynesians in this podcast space is an amazing thing, and I just want more of the Polynesian youth over there to really actually love and respect the cultural art forms that we do. I know a lot of us, I don't know, I didn't really grow up here in the West Coast, but what I've been observing is that, a lot of the youth that'd be like, oh, dude, we just have to dance for church and get this over with. And like, when they're doing the dance, we're just going to half-ass and we're just not really going to do it. Dude, dance with your whole heart. I'm going to say this isn't going to sound controversial when I'm saying it. There are some non-Polynesian people that dance much better and with much more mana than we do. And why is that? Because I was exposed to a life in Florida where dancing, you gave it your all, we danced correctly, we're learning from great people, we're around legends that came from PCC and all that. I'm not saying that every Polynesian youth has to be around people from PCC that dance good, but take pride in the culture that you come from. Especially here in America, we're always falling behind New Zealand and Australia. Us in the film world that I've talked to, we always talk about it. I always talk to Hinano and Manule, right? Like they're helping with my film journey, because I'm trying to do that as well. We're like, man, what is something different that we can inspire the youth to be just like our friends in New Zealand and Australia, create more content and create media and become entertainers? I think I just want more of our Polynesian youth to get into Tahitian dancing, get into Samoan dancing, get into hula, get into Modi. And I saw this comment on my brother's TikTok, because my brother does things for, says a lot of things about Hawaii and Samoa. And a Samoan person put, he's very confused. How are you confused? Are you Samoan or are you Hawaiian? I was like, no, we're Polynesian. And as Polynesian dancers, what I love about us and the Polynesian entertainers, we're exposed to all of the cultures. We're not just one thing. Yes, being proud of Samoans who you are, but being proud to be a Polynesian person, a Pacific Islander, Polynesian exactly, is a privilege, an honor. There's a way we carry ourselves in this world that's different. So when we dance on stage, and even if we are dancing for church and for small little rinky-dink things, like, oh, let's dance for bingo or whatever, like, take pride. Go there and give it your all. These your ancestors created these dances and the fire knife dance and all that for you to thrive and for you to be proud of who we are, because that's what makes us unique. If you want to learn more about a culture, what do? You look into their art, and then you look at their people, because the art and the people are intertwined. Because the art should be just as taken seriously one day, hopefully, as hip hop, as pop, as African dance, to be a viable resource of dance that could be taught in schools, because it comes from an indigenous people that we do different moves and different things that tell stories. And I hope our youth that do listen to this take pride in not only who they are, but the cultural dances that they do too. And to preserve it the old way too. Like, sometimes I know we put hip hop movement in there, but how come we could just, like, how about we learn the basics and then you can innovate? And so that's kind of my message, is for all the youth out there that just look at dancing and just brush it off. You can make a living off of it, of course, but you can also embrace it, because you know that is just as much a part of you as the language is.
Yeah, no. Yeah, shout out to Hinano and Manu Tanielu and Namuali Tofa of the Josefina movie. To our listeners, check out Josefina movie at Manuscript Film. It's a great movie for our Polynesian people. And I like to ask our guests, do you have any questions for us? Because we love to learn and improve on our podcast.
Oh, man. I think that the question I would have for you two, especially with Behind the Lava like the podcast, is, have you ever thought about doing it live in front of an audience, making it more of an event and bringing these same people that you have, and getting to hear these people live, being here at home, you can see it, you can turn it off and then turn it back on. But when you're live in front of people, just like live performance, there's nothing like that, where you're getting their actual honest reaction. There's no edits. There's no music that comes in. There's, building the community that way. Have you guys ever thought about that? And where do you see Behind the Lava in the future as well?
I know for me, there's an opportunity for us to go live in August 5th at the Utah Pacific Heritage Month Festival. I hope it goes through, where maybe 5 of the Polynesian podcasts would come together and go live. 1 hour each section is designated to that podcast. So there's an opportunity for us to go live, but it's not something that I want to do, because I'm an introvert. I don't like dealing with people. Like, I can deal with people, but socially I get exhausted real quick. And also the aspect of logistics, getting everyone together, getting the equipment to go live. We're still poor. We don't have the money to do all that. So that's why we do it remotely. We don't have a studio, and trying to get everyone together with everyone's date and time and availability. It's difficult to go live unless it's an event like a festival. Then we can actually do it. And for long-term goal, we've started a podcast not knowing what we wanted to do. But for me, I always joke around, hey, I want to be a media platform that our people can utilize. They come to us, then we highlight them. And that's what I'm trying to do with the Behind the Lava Business Spotlight section, is to highlight each business or nonprofit. It doesn't matter if you're selling socks at home or selling in a food cart or in a store. We want to highlight everyone because businesses struggle too. But I always, like I mentioned, joke about becoming a bigger platform other than being a podcast. The podcast will always be there, but I want to be more in the future for our people.
Oh, I would love to go live, just to have a more organic experience with the boys. Cause I mean, I know I kind of fumbled when we had our one TV appearance because she caught me off guard, and man, I knew to be ready, but I messed that up. But I want to run it back. But when we're in person, for me, I'm better in connecting with people. Even though you don't see me out and about a lot, socially talking to everybody, but if we're just chatting it up with with the Usos and whoever else, it's a easier experience for me to actually connect with people. And then as far as the future goes, kind of along the lines of what Michael said, I just want to, like, what you call the FICOP podcast and other Islander platforms, just want to keep putting our people out there, highlighting them, because that's one things I love about our brothers and sisters in the Black community. They're always like, support Black-owned businesses or this and that, support our people. And that's what I want to do for us, not just say it, speak it, but, manifest it. And I hope we continue on to do that. And we're able to do it, we're able to level up and actually build more credibility to where we are able to highlight the many talents in our cultures, all the islands. Our people are so talented, creative, beautiful. Of course, like a lot of other cultures, but yeah, I especially want to highlight us. So, and then we can continue to branch out and help other people.
Amen, man. Ooh, mic drop.
So I'm gonna reverse it. And how do you see your podcast in the future?
Dude, wait a minute. I mean, Fireknife Life to me came out of necessity. It started during the pandemic. Our shows were done. Live entertainment took a huge hit, and so I've always thought about doing a podcast, but I just never knew how to do it until I found out about the Anchor app, where you can just record your conversation. And the first guest I've ever had was Tita Boy, Tahitian drummer. And we were talking about Polynesian dancing and history and drumming and these legends that people don't really know. And that fueled the next episode and the next episode, talking about people that we know in our little space as dancers, but trying to push them into the forefront of these forefathers of dancing that wanted to carry this art and do it in a different way. And because of their sacrifice, got to put our careers in tandem with theirs. I want to transition more to video. Audio is great, but if some people that hear it, that I was really new. Like I was just talking like this the whole time. I didn't know like it was scrunching up the thing where people would message me like, hey, your audio is kind of. So it's been more of a learning experience, and it made me realize how many people I knew and how many people that love what I did and I love what their work is. And us kind of talking as friends more than like, us, we just, Tanner, we just went right now, right?
Yeah, we just met.
We just met right now, right? But these people these big people like Tiana from Polynesian and all them, and maybe that we're just talking, shooting the breeze. The future of Fireknife Life is transitioning from video, putting video content, building the community through, what I used to do with the Instagram. We had Fireknife Fridays, we highlight a Fireknife dancer, Polynesian dancer. We'd market the whole podcast episode using that person's work, because that person's work is on YouTube and all of that, and live entertainment, seeing their shows. So when people were to listen to it, they're like, oh, they followed their whole journey and see what it's like outside the stage, and trying to always pull the curtain back on the entertainment industry from the artist's perspective. So the future of Fireknife Life is not just interviewing Fireknife dancers and, musicians and all that, but getting into the entrepreneurial space, because dancing, you are your own self-employed person. Unless you work for a group, man, you're representing yourself. Getting people like Harris Mataf on and all of you on, maybe, as building Polynesian excellence, but knowing that there's all these guests to go around to share their stories, that I don't want to be the only podcast around. I want Behind the Level to succeed. I want Village Mate to succeed. They haven't been around for so long, and what they did was great. I want all of us to thrive. So when we do see each other, like in real life, we're proud to see each other because we know the space that we're in. I want to always be the live entertainment guy and be on stage and building that platform, build businesses through the community, building businesses through building content, but also building friendships like this. So when we all see each other, we can collaborate and know that we're not just collaborating just to make content. We really just truly love each other's work. I just want to keep building friendships and building relationships and building the podcast for people to go there and laugh and have fun, and that we don't take it too seriously, but sometimes you kind of need that, And so, Fireknife Life, I just wanted to push other people to bring Polynesian excellence to the forefront. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your words. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Lava. We hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Rex Tiumalu, a true master of fire knife dance and a passionate advocate for the Polynesian culture. Don't forget to check out Matai Watches, our sponsor for this episode. Their beautiful timepieces are a true reflection of the spirit and beauty of the Pacific Islands. And of course, a big thank you to our guest, Rex Tiumalu, for sharing his expertise and insights with us today. You can learn more about Rex and his work by checking out the Fireknife Life podcast and the Hula Afi. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Behind the Lava and leave us a review. And thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this interview informative and insightful. Until next time, Tō whāsoi fua.